I can't take it anymore. Get me out of this house. My mother collapsed at the front door, tears streaming down her face. What's going on here? Why are you treating Mom like this? She's not a slave, you know? Defending my mother, I raised my voice. My brother's wife was like, well, isn't dealing with the unpleasant stuff part of your mom's job? I'm just asking her to do what she should be doing. That's it. Jessica is sick right now and she needs to avoid stress. Are you trying to pick on her like someone mean? Talking to my brother and his wife was useless. And sadly, my father was no different from them. When David and I complained to my father about the way he treated my mother, he snorted and was like, well, why don't you two take her in? Amidst this, David stepped up and was like, all right, we will. Are you sure? Tears welled up in my eyes as I thanked him. As a result of taking in my exhausted mother. My name is Jennifer William, 27 years old, and I work for a company. I live with my husband, David. We've been married for 3 years and don't have any children yet. Currently, we live about a 30-minute drive from my childhood home. Back home, my father, who's been working for a company, my stay-at-home mom, and my older brother, John, lived together. However, recently, John got married. I may have been outdone by Jennifer in terms of getting married first, but my partner, Jessica, is 24, so now you have a younger sister-in-law. John said with a sheepish smile, and I laughed and blessed them from the bottom of my heart. I wonder if calling her sister. Should I just call her Jessica? And where on earth did you find a partner with such an age gap? Although John is a good person, he's quite shy and didn't have many relationships, even in his 30s. We weren't necessarily worried about him getting married late due to his age, but because of his personality, our parents and I were a bit concerned. Well, I actually met her on what you'd call a dating app. What? John, you were on one of those? This took me by surprise. Yeah, some guys at work made me do it. They said if I kept daydreaming, I'd be single forever, so they kinda forced me into it. And well, here we are. John said, blushing. I hear about those apps all the time now, but I never thought you'd use one. We gotta thank that coworker of yours. Well, that's the thing. Leaning in with a playful grin, John continued. Can you believe it? The colleague just wanted to see how it works and asked me to give it a shot. And now, he's saying he might register himself. Pretty rough, huh? Oh, using you as a guinea pig. That's just mean. Chuckling together with John, we were just glad everything turned out fine in the end. Later, we had a meeting with Jessica, who would soon become my brother's wife. I'm Jessica. Pleased to meet you. Seeing her say that and give a slight bow, our family was taken aback. She's unquestionably beautiful, but how should I put it? Despite being young, she lacked youthful energy. In other words, she had a kind of jaded look. The way she occasionally glanced sideways at us or flashed a forced smile with the corners of her lips turned up. If I had to be blunt, she didn't seem genuine. I met John and I feel so blessed. After all, I have such wonderful in-laws and, even though she's older, a lovely sister-in-law. I feel I've hit the jackpot. Her bright smile saying that seemed a bit insincere. It looked like my mom felt the same way, shooting me a complex look. But the men, obviously my brother, and surprisingly even my dad and my husband, David, were clearly smitten, grinning ear to ear. It was something. Thus, our first meeting with Jessica left us with mixed feelings. Not long after, my brother and Jessica got married. Their wedding went smoothly, and the already beautiful Jessica turned into an absolutely stunning bride. Jessica's parents seemed like ordinary folks, and we managed to interact with them just fine. At that time, it seemed like my brother and Jessica's married life got off to a smooth start. At least until they returned from their honeymoon and came to our parents' house. Instead of going to their rented 2-bedroom apartment to start their married life, they came straight from the airport, bearing souvenirs. And my brother was like, Jessica's pretty tired from the trip. We'd be grateful if you let us eat something here today. They stayed in the guest room, and it seemed they never left after that. Sorry. It was my first time traveling abroad, and I've got some serious jet lag. Jessica looked so miserable that my mom couldn't send them away. But after that, they showed no signs of leaving. I only found out about this 2 months after they returned from their honeymoon. What? They'd been there the whole time? Apparently, Jessica's quitted her job and used our parents' guest room as her own, sleeping, waking up, eating, and bathing whenever she pleases. What on earth was happening? With my job and my own family, I hadn't visited my parents for a while, so I had no idea about this situation. My mom tried asking my brother about it a few times, but he was like, "Jessica's just tired from adjusting to all this. Can you cut her some slack? Or do you want to be called a meddling mother-in-law who kicks her out?" Even my dad was like, "Well, she's family now. Let's just see how things go for a bit more." Either way, it was hard to tell what was really going on from my mom's account. I promised to visit my parents' house to see the situation for myself and then hung up the phone. That weekend, David and I pretended to be unaware and visited my parents. I dropped by around 2 p.m. on Saturday. It shouldn't be an odd time. I've visited around this time before, sometimes leaving after just having coffee, and other times staying for dinner. Since I lived nearby, I seldom spent the night, though I did occasionally before my brother got married. As usual, I entered through the front door and headed to the living room where John was seated. "Oh, John. You're here? How's married life? How's Jessica?" I intentionally greeted my brother that way. "Yeah, not bad. Jessica's doing good." Acting like everything was normal, John then folded the newspaper he was reading. Just then, Jessica mentioned she was hungry and descended from the second floor. Upon seeing me, she seemed surprised for a moment but then broke into a grin, not seeming embarrassed at all. "Oh, Jessica, you're here too? John, you should have told me." When I said that, John just mumbled something incoherent in response. However, Jessica was like, "Don't you know that? We decided to live in this house together." Without thinking too much. "John, when did you decide this? I didn't know that." When I asked John, instead of him, Jessica was like, "Well, with such a big house here, isn't it a waste not to live together? It's true that our family house is spacious. When they bought this land, the area was not as developed, so I heard from my mom that they got it for a bargain. Years later, with the development of a nearby train station, the property value soared. But originally, it was a more affordable area." "So, did you guys give up your apartment?" This was another concern. They had just signed the lease and probably hadn't lived there even a day. "No, I'm gonna use that place as my getaway. I mean, living with in-laws in the same house, you'd need some space to breathe, right?" I was left speechless by Jessica's rationale. "Dad, what's going on? Are you okay with this?" When I turned to my dad, he was like, "You're married now. Let me handle the family affairs. Mind your own business. We'll manage things with John. If you get it, just go home." Having been dismissed in such a manner, David and I reluctantly left my childhood home. Afterwards, I did keep in touch with my mom occasionally. As Jessica had claimed, it seemed like John and his wife really started acting like the house was theirs. According to my mom, they were treating her like a maid and getting increasingly unruly. What's more, it seemed my dad wasn't just turning a blind eye but was also being harsh with mom. I felt like I couldn't just stand by and watch any longer. David and I made plans and decided to head to my family home. Finally, on the weekend when we were all set, David and I visited the house. We knocked on the front door and waited for someone to answer. The person who came out truly took me by surprise. "Jennifer, you're here?" my mom said with a relieved look. Upon seeing my face, tears welled up in my mother's weary eyes. "What on earth happened?" "I can't take it anymore. Get me out of this house." Exhausted, my mother collapsed in the hallway, shedding tears. "Hey, what are you doing? We still have preparations to make. My friends are coming over tomorrow. We need to get things ready quickly." "Oh, Jennifer." Jessica said that as she chased after my mother to the entrance, looking surprised when she saw me. "What the heck is going on? Why are you treating Mom so poorly? She's not a slave, you know." As I defended my mother and said that, Jessica was like. Household chores are her job. I'm just asking her to do what she's supposed to. What exactly is she supposed to do? Prepare for your friend's visit? Defending my mother and glaring at her, I asked Jessica, and she was like, we're having a fan meetup at our house tomorrow. We need her to set up the venue and prepare the feast. Jessica smirked and said that. Why does my mom have to do all that? Because, like I said, household chores are her job. You could do it by yourself. I shouted at her, and she was like, that's cruel. John. And she quickly ran to another room and brought my brother. Jennifer is trying to push household chores onto me. I have to live stress-free right now, that's why I quit my job. That's right, Jessica's health is poor and she needs to avoid stress. Are you trying to bully her like an overbearing sister or something? I felt that was the excuse to quit her job. Where's Dad? There was no use talking to this couple. Ignoring them, I entered the living room. What do you want? Why aren't you stopping them? Mom's being treated like a maid. That's just how it is. Dad sighed heavily and added, Jessica is unwell. It's our duty as a family to care for her. This man, saying such things, isn't my father anymore. I intuitively felt that. Maybe he's also being troubled just like Mom? I hoped that was the case. I felt that way. However, my dad was just like my brother and his wife. Hey, she isn't helping with the preparations for tomorrow. What did you say? Upon hearing Jessica's words, my father walked past me, heading towards the front door with heavy footsteps. Why don't you do as Jessica says? If you can't do it properly, we don't need someone like you in this house. He yelled as if my mom was a lazy servant. David was shocked and shielded my trembling mother behind him. How can you say such a thing? She deserves to be told off like this. Take that back. She is important to us. David firmly told my dad, but he was like, I don't need someone useless like her. If so, you guys should take her in. What on earth has happened in this house? I was filled with shame and could only glare at him from the front door. Then, in the midst of all this, David was like, all right, we'll take her in and live with us from today. He said that. Really? Of course. Both my mother and I were tearful as we thanked David. We then quickly left our family home with my mom. David and I took her to our place and listened to what had transpired. According to her, at first, my father was quite troubled. But then one day, out of the blue, he began to treat her harshly. And together with my brother, the three of them started to boss her around. Both I and David had a theory about my father's change in behavior. And to confirm it, we set up a plan. It was painful to know the truth, but it was better than seeing my mother suffer indefinitely. We decided it'd be the best to face the truth and move forward. And, in just 2 days, we were able to gather the evidence we needed at our house. Let's go back to the family home with this evidence. David and I made the arrangements, and everything was set. With that, the three of us decided to head back to the family home. Well, look who's back. If you promise to behave from now on, I might let you in. My father said with a smirk, looking at my mother. Listen. You abandoned your duties as a housewife once. We can't have that again. Absolutely. My brother and his wife said arrogantly. I presented a tablet to the three of them. I wonder if you can still say that after watching this. The three gasped as they watched a video displayed on the tablet. To everyone's shock, it showed my father and Jessica in a compromising position. That's a fake! My father tried to snatch the tablet from my hands, but I dodged. I knew he was gonna do that. Jessica, with her face pale, glanced nervously at my brother. No way! This is one of those deep fakes Jennifer made, isn't it? Yeah, it is! Jessica desperately nodded her head up and down in agreement with John's statement. If you think so, then maybe you should listen to this next. I then played an audio clip from the tablet. It's a good thing we got rid of Mom successfully. Yeah, I thought if we pushed her around like that, she'd leave eventually, but she was tougher than I thought. The two chuckled together at their shared secret. Now we just need to make sure John doesn't find out about our relationship and keep it going. Absolutely. Since we can spend our days together, I don't think we need that apartment anymore. Surprisingly, it seemed my father and Jessica had been having secret meetings in the apartment they rented as a newlywed home. That's a lie! Jessica tried to lunge at me, but David stepped in to stop her. If you're saying this is also a lie, should we get an expert to verify it? You've invaded our privacy with cameras and bugs. That's a crime. When did you plant those? No, I didn't do anything shady. That's right, I hadn't planted anything. I have a smart speaker here that I set up for my parents. You know about it, right, Jessica? Yes, the handy device that can be controlled by voice. When I came here the other day, I simply changed its setting to monitoring mode. What? Jessica seemed to have enjoyed using the voice-controlled smart speaker for its convenience, but my main intention in gifting it was exactly this. So, I set it up to watch over my elderly parents. I can operate it from my device and turn on its video and audio recording functions in this room. I wanted David to somehow get everyone out of the living room, so I had him wait by the front door. But it turned out everyone gathered there on their own, making my task easy. I didn't know it had that function. That's sneaky. Who's the sneaky one now? I stared hard at Jessica. Dad, Mom says she's gonna divorce you, so let's proceed with the paperwork. I don't care. Do as you please. But don't think you can ever come back here. No, you've got it wrong. The one who's gonna leave is you. My previously silent mother spoke firmly to my father. Don't think I've forgotten that the land this house stands on is in my name. What? Jessica's eyes widened in shock. Why are you surprised? You have no stake in this house, do you? Of course I do. I'm the bride of this house. I have the right to live here. No, you don't. This is our parents' house, and this land belongs to my mother. You don't have an ounce of right to it. When I said that, Jessica clicked her tongue in annoyance and was like, Fine, John will inherit this place one day anyway. Then it'll be mine. John, let's go. But John was like, I think we have things to discuss too. To Jessica. With a pale face, Jessica was like, It's a misunderstanding, John. It's a lie. Please believe me. But it was unlikely John would ever trust her again. As a result, both my mom and dad, as well as my brother and Jessica, ended up divorcing. Of course, that video and audio recording were used as evidence to show the lawyer who assisted their divorce. Dad eventually admitted the property rights of our family home to my mom by division of property. Originally, the land was under my mom's name, but the house, being 35 years old, wasn't worth much, so that alone wasn't enough. On top of that, they drafted an official agreement that he would continue to pay the remaining amount in monthly installments. Dad moved to a small apartment, where he'll likely live alone for the rest of his life. That family property was originally bought a long time ago by my mother's father, in other words, my grandfather, for his daughter. My parents built a house there when they got married, and then my brother and I were born. Everyone thought of us as just a regular family, with a normal life. Nobody expected things to turn out this way. Our ordinary family was shattered because of one woman, Jessica, entering our lives. My brother also proceeded with division of property through their lawyer. Jessica's parents felt genuinely sorry, and both of them deeply apologized. From what I heard, Jessica had a history of flirting with guys from a young age. Her mom cried, saying that when Jessica announced she was going to marry a seemingly responsible office worker like my brother, they were relieved, hoping she had finally settled down. And I believe that initially, Jessica probably wanted to marry my brother for his steady income and desired a life without hardship. Her father pleaded with me to believe that. But she just couldn't hold back her true nature. True, I get where your brother and your dad are coming from. There's something about Jessica, I don't know, that draws men in. David added. Right, I remember when you first met her. You were all smitten too, weren't ya? I teased. Well, that was... I'm sorry. David admitted, looking embarrassed. Seeing David genuinely apologetic, all I could do was chuckle and forgive him. This ordeal made it clear to me that there really are such people in the world. Not defending him, but my dad wasn't the type to usually fall for women's allure. Even my mom acknowledged that. Yet, before we realized, he had fallen under Jessica's spell. And while my brother does regret bringing such a woman into our house and not supporting our mom more, it doesn't mean his actions are forgivable. My brother suffered how to pay for his sin to my mom. My mom initially kept a distance from my brother for a while, but she insisted that she wouldn't be able to move forward with mess. I'm really scared of how I was. Even when Jennifer showed me that video, I was still willing to believe Jessica, thinking it might have been a deepfake. If it wasn't for the audio recording and the voice match, I might have still believed her. Saying this, he looked sad. He was also like, if only I hadn't been fooled by her, things between mom and dad wouldn't have. He trailed off, guilt evident in his expression, before leaving our family home. He planned to live in his apartment for a while, then he's gonna put in a transfer request at work and move out of state. He hopes to start fresh there. Later on, David and I moved into the family home and decided to live there with my mom. We made the bold decision to renovate the house, transforming it into a two-family home. We also considered the future, making it accessible for everyone. This'll ensure a comfortable living for a long time. I said. Absolutely. Even though it's technically a two-family home, we'll always be close by. David added. Thank you. Mom smiled. She wanted to use the money she received from division of property for the renovation. My mom was like, every time I feel comfortable in this house, it might help me forgive John a little. My brother got transferred overseas, and word is he's reevaluating his life from scratch there. He seems to have met someone new, but he's unsure where it's headed. He's a bit hesitant about relationships now, but if he ever finds true happiness and wants our mother's forgiveness, he might gather the courage to visit. Dad continues his lonely life in an apartment. While he seems to regret his actions, we only occasionally send him pictures of the grandchildren. Even though he may have been a victim of a seductress, it's still hard to forgive him for what he did. From what I've heard, Jessica is now in a place surrounded only by women, where she can't lure men, but we don't care to find out more. Her parents assured they'll handle it. However the situation unfolds, she's no longer part of our family. Now, our home has grown, and 4 of us live together. Seeing my mom enjoying her time with her grandchild fills our days with joy. I hope this happiness lasts forever. I'm not just hoping. I'm determined to make it last. I believe this happiness is the best revenge against that woman, Jessica.